What's up, everyone? Today we are joined by Eric Helbock. Eric is a seasoned investor. He owns and manages over 60 units throughout the Hudson Valley. Definitely worth a listen. I'm Jake Garay from the Garay team with Berkshire Hathaway, and you're listening to my podcast, Selling the Suburbs. I'm sitting down with real estate agents, investors, experts, and various professionals throughout the industry. On Selling the Suburbs, we're discussing the truth about real estate, entrepreneurship, and the ever-changing housing market. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you coming out here. I know we've talked about doing this for a while, but it's good to have you on.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
So for anyone who doesn't know you or your story, you know, obviously now you manage over 60 units, self-manage them, own a bunch of units yourself as well. How'd you get into real estate? Like, take us all the way back to the beginning. Like, how you were a teacher? Was it before you were teaching that you had an interest? Like, what's the beginning of like Eric's story?
So I worked for a company called Walk, W-A-L-K. It's a radio station in Long Island. And I sat next to a guy that was pretty crazy. And he was making $200,000 plus at the time. And this goes back 20-something years ago. And he was very exciting and fun to be around, very hyper, very energetic. And he handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Who Moved My Cheese and basically told me that this is a horrible job and I should look elsewhere. So I started putting letters in people's mailboxes, foreclosures from the back of the newspaper. I'd, just write a little note and say, hey, if you want any help, I'd love to help you out. I got multiple threats of A, violence, and B, that it was illegal. I was putting things in their mailbox. So I started putting things in their windshield and then their front door. So I was pretty persistent. I was not able to help anyone at the time. And then September 11th happened, so 2001. And I think I quit working for the radio station and I took a job teaching. I taught in Brentwood, Long Island. I taught art. I did it for about a year and a half, and then I was told that my job would be cut. At the time, the market, now we're going 2003, 2004, market's jumping. I was looking at crack houses to buy for myself. And we're looking maybe $400,000 or $500,000. And when I say a crack house, legitimately, like you see needles and pipes and stuff on the front lawn or inside the house. And
this is in Long Island?
In Long Island. Areas like Ronkonkoma or Patchogue, they were nice areas, but they weren't fully nice. Mm-hmm. And starter homes were just insane. So I think I was making $34,000 as a teacher. And they were offering me $400,000 or $500,000 mortgages. And I'm like, this is impossible. How did I ever pay it? They're like, oh, put a basement apartment in. And it didn't work out. Fast forward, they basically told me because of budget cuts, my job would be cut. So I happened to go on a field trip. I sat next to a lady. We got along great. She said I remind her of her nephew, Josh. He was from Huntington. He was teaching in a place called Newburgh. He was teaching a woodshop class, and he was art certified. And, I was told I was not going to have a job, so she said, you should really call Josh. I called Josh. He got me an interview. They taught me, they gave me a job teaching half art, half technology. And after teaching that for like a year, I was like, I like this woodshop stuff. So technology, woodshop, it was kind of a little of both. I was teaching it also with an art mindset. So we're doing a lot of drawing design, a lot of planning, pre-engineering. I guess I shared a classroom with a guy named George Crowder. He was an amazing guy. He's older. One day, I went to an auction, a tax auction, and I bought a single-family house and 7 pieces of land. I came back to work. I was talking to George, and he's like, oh, that's great. I was like, oh, blah, blah. He's like, why didn't you tell me you're interested in real estate? I said, I don't know, I never thought of it. And ends up George had tons of real estate all over the city of Poughkeepsie. And I was like, this is amazing. So now we had a newfound interest where we shared things in common. And I want to say that first project took me, a year and a half.
Was that the first deal you ever bought? Was at the tax auction?
Yeah. And it was in Carmel or Kent. They call it the land of no. Kent can't because everything is no. Nope. So his house was abandoned for over 25 years. Oh my God. I bought it sight unseen.
How much you pay for it?
$34,000. I had $3,000 to my name, and I had 30 days to buy it. And I just bought my primary residence, which needed everything. So I was like...
And what made you think this was a good idea?
Yeah, I know. And everyone asks, well, how did you get where you are? I was too stupid to quit. That's how I got where I am. So I did that all myself, nights and weekends. We did the roof, we did the siding, windows, floor, plumbing, electric, well, sheetrock.
So
actually, I hired the sheetrocker.
Total gut.
Yeah. Sold it. It went into contract 3 or 4 times. The first guy I sold it to gets arrested for assaulting somebody like 2 weeks before closing. And he lost his mortgage because he lost his job. The second person lost their job because now we're going into like 2010, 2011. It was rough times. Then the third person closed. And I remember at the closing table, I didn't even have an attorney. I brought a friend of mine who was a title guy. No, he's not a title guy, I'm sorry. I brought a friend of mine that was a paralegal. And I agreed to like do his hardwood floors or something for him if he come and make sure I just don't do anything too stupid, you know. I couldn't even afford an attorney at the time. I was doing side jobs in construction to get money for material.
Now, did you have a background in construction?
Not really. No. So my dad was a carpenter. He was a cabinet maker, but he didn't really teach us anything. But I was around it. And my mom's an artist. And I kind of went more towards art than construction. But after seeing a lot of it, I'm like, this ain't hard. And now with YouTube and everything else, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we end up selling that place. And I remember at the closing, I have the guy with me that's helping me out. The Chase app came out where you could cash a check on your phone. And I took a picture of the check and they asked me what I was doing. I said, I just put it in my bank account. And the lawyers on the other side started flipping out. We didn't close yet. You can't do that. I was like, I'm only joking. I just never seen this much money because it was like $135,000 or something. So the guy was definitely uptight, and I just thought it was funny.
That is funny.
Yeah. So a couple weeks later, so I worked on that place for 2 years, nights and weekends. A couple weeks later, we went to Ireland, I think. I hired one of my students right before we closed to take a small backhoe and level the ground. And I thought that was awesome. So I told my wife, hey, I'm going to buy a backhoe. And she's like, all right, yeah, sure. And by now, she should have known me. We've been together 25 years. A couple days late after we closed, actually it was a Ford Ranger, 6-cylinder, had a big flatbed on the back. And they just drove a backhoe from Texas. And they dropped it off my house. And she's like, what's going on? I said, I told you I was buying a backhoe. I thought you were joking. So I bought a backhoe with that money. We went to Europe for a little while. And then I bought a Cherry Hill condo. I bought that at a tax auction again. And at the time, your coworker, Dan Axman, was showing me a lot of condos. And I think about a week after I closed, I'm in the process of evicting that guy from jail. I bought that at tax auction. I start gutting it. The neighbors come over and they say, does he know you're in here? I'm like, who's he? And I guess the neighbor that guy was a little crazy or whatever, and he was in jail for assaulting one of his neighbors in Cherry Hill, the golf club.
So again, they sold it out from under him while he was in jail.
And it ends up, it wasn't his. He was
just the tenant.
Girlfriend's, but she died. And the reason why he assaulted, the story is weird. The reason why he assaulted the neighbor was they were talking to the girl, but she was dead. So yeah, there really was, no one was talking to her. It was just, people were crazy. So I go and I'm cleaning out the place. The neighbors come and say, hey, did you talk to this guy? I said, I didn't even know anyone lives here. It's empty. But there was a lot of mattresses. There was, again, drug paraphernalia, lots of needles, lots of pipes. 2 for 2 so far, right? Yeah, I'm too stupid to get out of the business. So I went down to the local jail, introduced myself, and I ended up working out a deal with him where I'd put all his stuff into a storage facility, and I'd pay him like $200, and I would go on with my rehab. Next time when I went to pay him, he said, I don't want anything. Anything in there is already stolen. Anything worth anything is stolen. So I said, all right, so I'll give you $400. So for the next 8 days, I put $50 in his commissary, cleaned that place up, And as we were just about to get that rented, Dan called me and said he had an off-market condo. I walked it before he even made it to the place. So Dan basically is like, look, give Berkshire Hathaway $1,000 or something. We'll get that thing done. As I'm buying that one, I see auction.com put a sign in the window of one right across the street. Also a Cherry Hill condo. So I called them, and by this point, I had no money left from the flip.
I was going to ask you how you finance it.
Yeah,
So it's all this is all from the proceeds of your first deal.
Yeah. So I called up one of my old best friends, and he's like, yeah, let's go have something. That sounds great. So I had no money at all. But I had a couple dollars in my Roth, and the guy, George, used to always pitch, put money in your Roth, put money in your Roth. So my half came from my Roth IRA. My buddies came from cash. We kept that for a couple of years, and then, we started buying things with Roths. That was my first real year of investing or so. After the first one was a flop, total flop. It took 2.5, 3 years,
So
and after that,
so when you really started to roll these different purchases, what year was that?
I think I bought the first one in 2010. I think I sold it around 2013. So 2013 or so, we started buying Cherry Hill condos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were these were just all rentals? Like you were just buying them off market and renting them out?
Yeah, so buying them off market. Oh, so the auction.com, I'll get back to that question in 1 second. The auction.com said coming soon. So I called them and I said, I want to make an offer. And they said, no, it's not on the market yet. I said, great. I just sent you a proof of funds and I want to make an offer of this amount. By the way, I'm buying the one right across from it for this amount. We already have an accepted offer. Here's our contract. They said, there's no way they're going to accept that. It's not even listed yet. I said, great, but you have all my info. Here's my offer. Here's my contract. They called me the day I actually closed on the auction one. And they said they accepted your offer. I said, great, can I walk it? And they said, you haven't walked it? I said, give me 30 minutes and then I'll sign it and I'll send you a deposit. And I happened to be getting food at Asian Temptation, which is right across the street. I literally just turned around, went in there, ceiling was all moldy, everything else was great about it. I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I ended up buying that one. Pretty much sight unseen, but off market, but never even made it through the process.
Wow.
Now at that point, they are all rentals. And I don't know if the next house was in a Cherry Hill, but I know at one point I bought one on Rochdale Road. I think it was a single family. I went for a house that my lawyer brought to me at the time. The guy was losing it. And I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes. It's in Hyde Park. The guy was losing his house. He was living there with his sister, the sister's boyfriend, and someone else. Sister's boyfriend kept beating him up. And, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you
can't. So
the
lawyer calls me and says, hey, Eric, do you have the ability to close in 10 days? And my answer is always yes. Sure, whatever. Let's get this done. So I go and I walk the house. You could see the septic bubbling in the front lawn. The tub is blue. The kitchen is a mess. And it was like 8 dogs living there. There was a hoarding problem. And I was like, yeah, great. My son was sleeping in the car. He was a baby, maybe 1 year old. And I'm walking this place real quick. And I said, great. I'll have an offer with you in 15 minutes. And they're like, 15 minutes? I said, you have to close in 10 days. You need this offer now.
In 15 minutes.
So I think they owed $35,000 to taxes. The house was free and clear. I offered them, I think, $75,000 or something like that.
Why did they need to sell it so quickly?
A tax foreclosure auction. They were losing it to Dutchess County tax foreclosure.
So they were literally about to lose the house.
Yeah, so I called up my lawyer. My lawyer said, great. They agreed to sign all the paperwork. I gave my lawyer a deposit. When he went in there, he just kept breaking down, very upset, visibly upset, leaving, coming back, same thing. And it ends up, they didn't sign the paperwork, so they did lose it to tax auction. So I went to Dutchess County to actually buy that property.
They never signed the paperwork and they lost the house.
They lost the house. And when it came to auction, it ended up selling for about $160. So I actually walked up to the guy that bought it and I showed him the pictures of the septic and I showed him all the things. So he knew what he was getting into because he didn't give a deposit yet. He still ended up purchasing it. While I was there, I was just about to leave. One of the last houses was 178 Rochdale Road.
It's the one we sold last year.
Yes, the one you sold last year. That house, it had a lady in there and a guy. I got the accepted offer. I think I bought it for like $34,000. So I went and introduced myself. Hey, I'm Eric Helbock. I just want to let you know that this house has been sold, and I'm wondering if you mind if I take a quick walk around. They allowed me to walk around. They had a big old bag of weed on the front table. Like, this is way before like weed was acceptable, and it had to be, a gallon Ziploc at least. And then they had
dealing it.
Yeah, and another small bag of just seeds and stuff. So I'm just walking around there smoking a joint, and we're just talking, and I noticed the roof is leaking. So I asked them, would you mind if we put a roof on? They were not okay with me putting a roof on, but they allowed me to tarp it. So we tarped it. They did not leave willingly, so we actually had to do a proceeding. We evicted them. And after we evicted them, I remember meeting with her a couple times. Everything I do is very friendly, so we're there. Mm-hmm. Even though we're evicting, I stay in contact with them. I was very cool with them. They kept telling me about bees. And I'm like, all right. So we're doing the roof, and my guys heard humming. And I was like, all right, this is crazy. So it was an old house. I think these houses are from the 1800s. We ended up taking off maybe, 6, 7 bays, and there was all hives. And when we first opened it up, I saw the honey. I stopped, and I was like freaking out. I'm like, I don't want to kill bees. What can I do? What's the right way to handle this? I happened to go to Adams in Wappingers. They just opened the Adams, and they had an apiary. I think that's what that's called, a bee lady. Everything I do, I just meet these random people. It's like I need a solution to my problem constantly. So I'm like, hey, how you doing? She's like, good. I see you're selling beehives. She's like, yeah. I said, did you do this before you worked for Adams? She goes, yeah. I actually have a lot of hives myself, but I never had a natural queen. I've always bought them. And I said, we were meant to meet each other today. She's like, what do you mean? I said, I just bought this house, and literally there's bays full of honey and hive, and I know nothing about this, and I just know I don't want to kill them. And the lady that lived there used to tell me that they've been here for 100 years. And she goes, I'm on it. She's like, when can I come? And I'm like, today, tomorrow, whatever. So she actually brought some guy that does high-end construction with her. He's another bee nut. And they cut off a little piece of the siding, and they, I guess, fogged it. And then they took off all the siding, and all the bees were like drunk. And she eventually took off her suit. She was wearing a suit at the time, like a bee suit. But they were all kind of hived up. I don't know, whatever she misted them
drugged
with.
Up.
And it was also cold. So bees were landing on her. Yeah. She shop vacuumed all the bees, and she took all the honey out. And then she gave me the house back with basically now all these bays missing of siding. So I just slapped some plywood on there, and a couple weeks later, we put new siding on the house. Yeah.
So she took all the bees and like moved them, essentially?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And I have no clue if that's an expensive job or not an expensive job. I just know that I needed a solution to a problem, and she was my solution.
And she did it for free? She just came over?
She did it for free. She was happy because she got an official, like, real queen, and she didn't have to buy the queen. Because a lot of times I guess she says they farm them. So they're not.
It's like artificial. It's not authentic.
Yeah. So she said, all I have to do is vacuum up the queen, and all the other bees will follow. So, I had that as a rental for a long time. And I sold it with you, I guess, last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up buying the next house from a tax auction maybe a year or two later.
So let's go back really quickly, because you said at the beginning when you were buying your first property, you didn't have the money. You had like $3,000.
Yeah.
You didn't have the money. How did you come up with the money?
So I'm a teacher by trade, right? In my classroom, I'd have all these random signs. If you want something bad enough, you find a way. If not, you find an excuse. Don't be upset with the results you didn't get, with the work you didn't do. I had all these things all over my room, plastered. If the deal is good enough, you'll find a way.
Yep.
If you want something, you'll find a way. That's it. I took out loans on my retirement. I had a car that was paid off. I took a car loan.
Wow.
I borrowed from family. It just
And that's
got
what
it done.
started the whole thing.
Yeah, and I still do every one of those techniques to this day. I take out retirement loans. I take out 403B loans, which would be like a 401k for the average person. I take out car loans still to this day. I borrow from friends. I borrow from family. If the deal's good enough, you'll find a way.
And that's so true. Cause like I see all the time with like newbie investors that are trying to get into it, and they're always like, well, how do I purchase the deal? Like people are always so tied up to like financing and partnerships and everything else. And I'm always just like, well, if you find a good enough deal, there's going to be somebody who's going to want to partner with you on it or lend on it or do something. The money is always the easiest thing.
Yeah.
It's just, it gets hard when it's not a good deal.
That's a big problem. Yeah.
Right. I mean, people think they have a good deal and they don't have a good deal.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. I'm sure you see it too. You probably get people from like the RIA or other people who know you, do a lot, and they reach out to you and like, I got this great deal. And then you look at it and you're like, I don't think it's a great deal.
Especially when it's like been on the market for 185 days. And they're like, Eric, I got this smoking hot deal. I said, I'm not going to waste my time. Why? They haven't done a price reduction. It's been on the market for 185 days. Guess what? It's the reason why it hasn't sold.
Way overpriced.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting into like wholesaling? Obviously your first deal was a flip, but then the next bunch of properties, it sounds like, were rentals. So like when did you get into like wholesaling and flipping on like a consistent basis?
I got to correct you. It couldn't have been called a flip because it took like 3 years. That was a flop. That was a total flop. Wholesaling, I guess I toyed with the idea multiple times. I used to spend a lot of time at the RIAs, and Kurt Darrow used to always start, does anyone have a wholesale? And I would always throw out whatever I was working on because I liked the idea of wholesaling. When too many people ran up and approached me, I said, I got to figure this out. I just didn't want to give it up. Mm-hmm. If everyone else found this to be such an amazing deal, because sometimes and to this day, I still do this. What am I missing?
Yeah, we have those conversations all the time.
Why are they selling me this at this price? If it's such a good deal, why would they do it? So I would kind of be like, all right, hey guys, I got this Cherry Hill. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $62,500. All of a sudden I have like 30 people bombard me. I'm like, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and I dip out. And then I figure it out.
It's a good way to test if it's a good deal or not.
Yes. So, and I'll get into that. I'll tell you a funny story. So that was actually going to be my first wholesale ever. And I did that at the RIA. Don't think that was the Dan Axman one, but I think the guy who sold me the property from Dan called me a year and a half later, but he had called the wrong number. So he left me a note on my tenant's door. Hey, if you know Eric, can you please have him call me? And his name was Aki. So he was a Greek guy. So I called him, and he had another condo for me. So I went to wholesale it, and all these people approached me, and I was debating, do I sell it, do I not sell it? And I decided to hold a one-day showing. I told Aki what I was doing. He was cool with it. And as I'm showing it, my friend Bob goes, Eric, you smell fire? I'm like, no, man. He's like, I definitely smell fire. I go, oh, shit. As I'm showing it, the heating system caught fire in the condo I was trying to wholesale. Again, you can't make this up. So I kicked everyone out, and I was doing a group showing, like 4 or 5 people all at once. And I had everyone staggered 15 minutes apart. But at one point, I just had multiple
Everybody
people
there.
So I ran to this 4 people per section of Cherry Hill condos, 2 down, 2 up. I'm running, knocking on the doors, telling them, get out of the building. I'm calling the fire department as I'm knocking on these people's door. I call the owner. He knew what I was doing. He knew I was showing it. So he rushed over there, and they put out the fire. It was the, I forget what it was. It was a simple part in the forced air burner, whatever, right? So he goes, obviously you're not going to buy the place. I said, hold on, let me think about this. We'll figure this out. The number was good. I think he wanted $62,500. I called up my plumber and I said, hey man, how much is it going to cost to fix this? Now, mind you, the fire department tagged it as now it's been caught a fire. It has to be inspected, the whole bit. So I called my plumber. I said, how much would it cost to fix this? It was under $1,000. So I called up the guy, Aki, and I'm like, hey, man, look, I'm still interested in buying it, but I have to get this legal before I close. Do you mind if my plumber comes in and fixes the part? We could split the cost. I'll pay it. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. He said, sure. And I said, how about this? I pay for it, but you let me just fix up the place a little bit. Since I'm going to have the plumber in there, why don't you let me just clean up the place a little bit? Sure, no problem. So
Before you close.
Before I close. So I painted the whole place. I changed some laminate. It had those old 1980s tiles.
Yep.
So I took out one row of the 1980s tiles and I put like a mosaic in there to kind of tie it together. Same tile that was in the kitchen already. So I kind of like, make it look nice. I think by the day I closed, I already had a tenant lined up. And I ended up not renting it, but I ended up selling it to the guy that was going to rent from me. So I think we sold
immediately, like right away?
Like I think the day I closed, we went into contract.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I sold it for $82,500. And that guy ended up selling it 2 years later for like $105 or something. But
and now they go for like, that was a 2-bedroom?
Yeah,
now they're probably like, I was going to say $175, $180.
I think over the years I've had 15 Cherry Hills, maybe 18 Cherry Hills. I've had a lot of Cherry Hills. Yeah.
It's interesting. I was thinking about that before when you said like, why are people always looking to buy stuff and why are you selling it if it's a good deal? And I think obviously it depends on like your situation, right?
Yeah.
Like we always talk about, you love trading, right? So like it's a matter of if you can trade it into something better, but that's where the wealth in real estate is, right? It's in the holding, right? Because
100%.
You buy that stuff you bought in 2012, 13, 14, 15, whatever. Yeah, sometimes you have to sell it to fund the next thing, but if you can hold on to it, that's where 10, 15 years goes by. That's where the money is. That's where the real money is. Everyone
I seem to talk to thinks that they're going to get rich the first year. You don't see shit the first year. You're going to spend
3
more.
or 4 years.
You're going to spend more than you're going to make.
Yeah.
But I'm going to cash flow. And every new investor just talks always about cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. There's 5 streams of income.
Passive income.
Yeah.
It's passive. You don't have to do anything.
This is 5 streams. Someone else paying down your loan. It's increasing in value, cash flow, all these wonderful things.
Your write-offs.
Yeah.
Equity pay down, all of that stuff, leverage.
But after year 5, especially if you have more than one property, you start to see, all right, this is nice.
Yeah, and especially if you like track like your net worth and you see what's happening and the market's going up and you're getting that equity and you're getting the write-off. So now you have
100%.
the extra cash to put back into new stuff and you're smart about it. But like you said, it takes time.
Yeah.
It doesn't
and
happen
my bank
overnight.
account's always 0.
Well, that's real estate rich and cash poor, right? Yeah. I mean, that's every growth mindset investor. You're never going to because as soon as you have the cash, what are you going to do with it? You're going to reinvest it. You're going to go put it into something, whether you're going to either improve one of your buildings or you're going to buy a new deal. Yeah. It's just a matter of, that's the hard thing, right? Because it's like, how do you figure out where does the money go? Do you put it into a new deal? Like it's opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Because once you have the cash, it's like, where do you put it into? Do you put it into the new deal? Do you put it into the improving your properties?
Pay down.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's the other thing. If you pay down the loan, then you get more cash flow.
Right now, I'm trying not to pay down anything because all my loans were like very low.
Well, that's the thing, right? So now you want to like keep those 3 and 4% interest rates. So
I could increase the loans.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's tough because like that's why that part of the market right now is so slow. The multifamily and stuff, because like if you don't have to sell, unless you're getting an institutional investor or something like that, that's willing to pay a premium. Like right now in the Hudson Valley, the only people who are still paying the premium numbers are like the big funds, right? Because they have millions of dollars that are cheap and they only got to get a rate of return to their investors at 3 or 4%. So they can, basically make the spread. If they're paying a premium and they're doing a 1031 exchange or something like that, then it makes sense to buy.
There's certain guys that like that are buying out Poughkeepsie.
Yeah. Well, and those like someone like yourself is always buying because you're buying at a steep discount.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm saying like on market investors. Like if you want to sell your properties right now on the market, you've got to like if it's something big, you can sell it to an institution. But if it's a small 2-family, your best buyer is probably like an owner occupant buyer now.
What is it? November 18th, where they're changing the FHA.
Yeah.
That's going to be a nice thing.
That's going to be great because you're going to see a lot. That opens up the pool of buyers that much more.
100%.
And I was literally talking to an investor yesterday about this. You're going to see like, so in New York City, for example, or even in, I'm sure you've seen it in parts of Long Island, Lower Westchester, you know, parts of Connecticut, New Jersey, anywhere that's like very commutable to the city, let's say under an hour, the multifamilies down there, I'd say 8 out of 10 are owner occupants, right? When they sell now, they turn over. If you're in, say, White Plains or, you know, Yonkers, if you're selling a 2-family, you can't really invest and buy it on the market because it doesn't cash flow.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're an owner occupant, you can buy it and live in one unit, and it's so much cheaper than trying to buy a house or pay for rent.
Yeah, now you're paying $300-$400 a month compared to $2,000,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to start to see up here. We're already starting to see it in markets like Poughkeepsie and Newburgh, Beacon especially. Like, you know, as the prices go up and up and up, they become more and more uninvestable because your return, unless you're buying off market and you're paying 60, 70 cents on the dollar. But it's nice to see as an investor who already owns a bunch of stuff, because guess what? That's who you're going to sell it to in 18 months or 24 months. And they're going to pay a 5 and 10% premium over what the investable number is, because they're going to live in it and rent out one unit and live for basically free.
I want to say maybe 2 years ago when the interest rates were really low, guys like me were really looking for 6 units, 10 units, 12-unit buildings.
That's smart.
And now I think with the numbers where they are, going off what you said, with that new rule, November 18th comes. I think it's the 18th, right?
Yeah.
What is it, 5% down?
5% down, conventional, up to 4 units.
I think that's going to be a game changer for those smaller buildings that people didn't want.
Yep. Especially because like traditionally you only had VA and FHA products for those, and they're very strict on conditions. So like
most investors don't want to sell to them.
And the thing is, like, you really can't, because if there's peeling paint and, you know, all sorts of health and safety issues, the lender wouldn't qualify the property, and the landlord doesn't want to go and put a bunch of money in. And if they put a bunch of money in, now they're going to want even more money, right?
100%.
But now with the conventional, like for investors who want to go out and do a house hack or something like that, it's the perfect product.
Oh yeah, I love it.
So you started to get into wholesaling a little bit.
Yeah, so I tried that wholesale. I ended up buying it. I did really good on it. I think I put like a $5,000 rehab in it, maybe. I made 17. I don't know what I was going to wholesale it for because it's pretty new.
What, 45 days?
No, like 15 days.
So you closed that quickly, I'm saying.
Oh,
after.
yeah. Because I was buying it cash.
Oh, there you go.
So then the guy I was selling it to, I think he ended up buying it cash as well.
So then you were really fast.
I think I only owned it. I think he paid rent for the first month, and then he owned it right after.
Wow.
Wholesaling, how did I get into it? I ended up liking the idea, but most of the things I went into contract for was such a good deal.
They just ended up buying it.
I got to close this, yeah. I met a guy named Kevin at one of my meetups. I was hosting these meetups. I want to say it might have even been the first meetup.
When did you start hosting the meetups?
About 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember. It was this time of year, either 4 or 5 years ago. And when he came, he brought me a place in Beacon. And I don't think that was my first wholesale, but it was at the beginning of wholesaling for me. At this point, I already had a nice network. And I started meeting more people that were wholesaling, and a lot of them were, there's a couple good ones, right? We know the good ones. You know them, I know them. But then there was a lot of people that were trying to sell retail and call it wholesale.
Yep.
And a lot of times they were even trying to lock up things that were on the market and trying to wholesale it, which now you're getting to the point where you're shady. If you're selling something and you're meeting someone's needs and they win, and you can make a couple of dollars, you win.
Yeah.
And the end buyer still feels like they get a good deal, they win. That's perfect. But when you're putting something on the market and you're just upselling it, now it's kind of borderline to me.
You said something at the beginning. I don't even know if you realize you said it, but you said when you first started out you were putting the mailers in and everything like that you said you couldn't help anybody. And like a good wholesaler and investor, that's their approach, right? Because you're looking at people who are in a tough situation and they're distressed.
Yeah.
And you're the only solution, because like take those people, for example, that were in tax foreclosure. They had to close in 10 days.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they didn't sign the paperwork, but you could have not only saved them from losing the house, but paid them another $45,000, and instead they got nothing. So you were trying to help them.
Yeah.
And so that's I think the mentality of someone who is like yourself, who's honest and fair and upfront about these things versus, like you said, the sketchy people who are just who give the people a bad reputation?
I tell them, if I'm planning on wholesaling, I usually tell the person, hey, look, if I don't buy it, because I'm usually in contract for multiple things at once. If I don't buy it, I have a friend of mine. Somebody's going to buy it. Is that okay with you? Is your only goal to get rid of this? Yes? Right. All right, great. And that's when it doesn't surprise people when I say, hey, I'm going to bring 2 of my friends in. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull this off, but we're going to make sure your place gets sold.
Right.
Because people are now making plans based on your commitments to them. So either way, Kevin brought this lady. Her sister passed. She gave it back to the bank already. I called her. Kevin was working with her. I said, let me just see if I could get her to let me in there to look at it. He's like, yeah, she won't let me in. I said, all right. So I played up, hey, I'm a local guy, part of the community. I could give you like a million references of people I bought from, sold to, whatever. I said, I just want access to the house. She doesn't live locally. She was in like Connecticut. It kept being a pain. So I said, how about if I have my lawyer draft a hold harmless agreement? We get access to it. If anything happens to me, if I get hurt or whatever, there's no liability. She agreed. She told me the back window was open. I went in. This place was sketchy. Holes in the floor. Like, the place looked like it was going to fall down.
Doesn't it make you wonder, like, how does that even happen?
Oh, dude, it's crazy. And it's a nice block. I think it was Spring Valley Road.
Okay, yep.
So I ended up bringing 5 or 6 people over. They were all walking it. Everyone's showing interest. The last guy is like, look, I think we were under contract for 90. She basically, we weren't under contract, I'm lying to you. She owed 80. She just gave it to the bank. I told her, call them and tell them, look, I'm going to pay cash. I'm going to pay you within 10 days. Is there any way I could get the house back? And she's like, they're not going to accept it. I'm like, they will, trust me, because they're not in the position to own real estate. So she called. They said yes. I told her I'd put $10,000 in her pocket. She said, okay. I was trying for 120, and then I saw the condition. I was like, oh, maybe 120 is pushing it. One guy basically said, hey, Eric, don't sell it to the other guys. I'll give you 125. And I was like, okay. So we shook hands. And to me, that means it's a done deal.
Yep.
He calls me. He goes, look, I'm going to wire you the money. I said, no, wire it to the lawyer. All right, so I'm going to wire the lawyer the money. Cool. He wires the lawyer the money, and he goes, I want to keep doing business with you. I'm like, all right. He's like, but I want you to know I'm selling this to another guy for 170. Like, are you upset with that? I'm like, hell no, that's great. He's like, that's great. I'm like, I made money. Homeowners out of their problem, they made money. I made money. Now you're going to make money.
Right.
The guy he sold to is a decent-sized developer locally. He ends up trying to build on the frame, decides he can't, knocks it down, and builds a brand new house on it. Sells it for like $690 or $699 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, it's...
I remember this house
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that for a while. It was like up in limbo and
Yeah.
working on it and everything. Wow. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but like...
Yeah. And I want to say then, me and Kevin didn't own anything together. I only partnered with Juan at that point. Kevin, you know, made 15 grand. I made 15 grand in a couple of days.
Yeah.
He was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Kevin started sending me leads like crazy. Boom, boom. And I said, Kevin, look, I'll keep selling them. We split them. I think in the first 6 months, we made like 50 grand each.
Wow.
So he was like,
All fired up.
dude, I'm going to just keep doubling down. I'm like, do whatever you got to do.
Yep.
And I'm still teaching at the time. So I'm teaching. I'm cold calling people on the ride home. I mean, we're just plowing. I want to say maybe January, February, somewhere around there, he brought me a guy. He had the guy's name wrong. It was funny. And that's fine. Especially me, I'm horrible with names. He thought it was a duplex. It ended up being 2 triplexes. So I said, yo, you got a second for a call? He's like, yeah. I said, dude, this is an amazing deal. The guy wanted $350 for both of them, but I thought he meant just for one. And I was like, I don't know, that's a little high. Because back then, we're talking 4 or 5 years ago in Poughkeepsie, $350 for triplex was retail, a little higher than retail.
Yeah, that was a lot.
So I'm like, I don't know. He goes, how about $325? I'm like, let me talk to Kevin. I said, Kevin, I'm under the impression he means both places for $325. And Kevin's like, what? I said, do you ever think about being a landlord? We can make $100 grand wholesale in this.
Right.
Or we could be a landlord. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So we have our LLC, we have our joint money that we just kept stacking.
Yep.
We called up hard money lender, and we closed cash, and then we did a hard money lender the next day. After we closed, we started the process. I think within 2 weeks, we closed that. I think we took out, I don't know, $700,000 worth of loans on something we just paid $325.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think they maybe $600,000 with the loans, because it was one appraised at $345, one appraised at $355.
Okay.
So I think we put $6 in our bank account.
Wow.
And then we started buying in Kingston. We bought in Newburgh. We were just going nuts
Buying spree.
because we had all this money, and he had so many leads, and I'm just cold calling on my way home from work. And sometimes we literally walk something, and within 15 minutes we had an offer, and boom. People are like, "You're gonna have the offer today?" I said, "No, I already sent it. It's in your mailbox." And we were just plowing offers.
Yep.
And I think you've met Mike before.
Yeah.
So taught in Newburgh for many years. Mike happened to be on the Facebook group, Investing in Real Estate in Hudson Valley. At the time, I was one of the admins for the Facebook group, which is funny because I'm the least computer guy you'll ever meet. So basically, all I did was, right now, I stopped adminning, sorry, Norman. All you see is ads on there. I used to just kick everyone off.
Yeah.
Hey, look, no self-promotion. We're here to help each other grow.
Yep.
That's it. If you self-promote, you're out.
You're out.
And I used to just blast people all day long. I see Mike's name on there, and I'm like, "Hey, Mike," private messaging him. "Any chance you go to Newburgh?" He's like, "I did." I said, "Hey, I think I was your teacher. You want to grab coffee and talk about real estate? Let's do it." So he said, "Yeah." So me and Mike ended up sitting down, having lunch, and between me, Kevin, and me and Juan and myself, I think we were in contract for like 34 units. So me and Mike just had a random lunch, just talked. I said, "If you ever need help, let me know. I'll help you out in any way I can." He owned a duplex on Winnicky, and I think he was looking to buy more. Fast forward a week or two, we're closing, boom. Me and Kevin. Me and Juan are closing, boom. It's just all these closings going on. And I said to Juan, I really think we need to hire somebody. Like someone just to help us out, little admin task, something. He's like, "All right." So I had a neighbor who, she's a great lady. She worked for like a chiropractor or something, part-time, not single mom, sorry. She's a stay-at-home mom. So her kids are getting a little older. I'm like, "Hey, well, let's hire her." He was like, "All right, I'm down. Let's interview her." So we did like a Zoom call. And then I told him about Mike. And he's like, "Yeah, I think I remember him. Really nice kid." I said, "Yeah." I said, "He owns on Winnicky. He just became an agent. He manages local Quick Check. Like, let's talk to him." We talked to him, and we decided to hire him right there on the spot. Mike doesn't really work for us anymore. Now he's kind of, it's more like a friend. We help him grow. He helps us grow. We occasionally still give him tasks, but it's not really like an employee.
Right.
But he definitely was a huge help as we were growing. Now he's kind of got his own like management company type deal. He's managing for other people, but he definitely helps us out a lot. And I just bought a condo with him, and we're going to list that condo any day now for sale. I think it's in Montclair Condos. Yeah. But it's great, So we got a lot of juggles. All day long juggling.
So what was it like? Obviously, right now you're full-time investing.
Yeah, about a year and a couple of months. Yeah.
But while you were still working as a teacher, which is obviously a very involved job, you're there every single day. Like, how did you balance working and having all of this going on simultaneously?
That's a great question. So I'd wake up really early. I drop off material for guys, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I get to Home Depot at 6 when they opened, and I'd pick up more stuff. I'd sometimes pick up the guys and drop them off. On my drive home, I would call guys, see what they need, and then pick up more material. And I had about a 45-minute ride home, so I would cold call. When I wasn't doing that, I was cold calling people, trying to land more deals, close more deals. We had great subcontractors for roof siding windows. We had great subcontractors for flooring. I still occasionally got dirty and still swung a hammer.
And still do?
I still do. This morning I was painting. Yesterday I laid tile. But yeah, it was just a lot. And one day, I guess I'm always running. I have 2 speeds on and off, right? So I'm always running. But then I thought about, I don't know, I think my buddy had a heart attack. I'm 45 now, so at the time I was 43. He had a heart attack. We've been friends since we were little kids. You start thinking about things and you're like, all right, I'm going to end up dying. And what's the point of all this if you're dead, you know? So the job was, it is amazing, but we weren't really getting the support we needed. And my health I was always sick. And there's definitely mold in my classroom. Wow. We've told them about that. They adjusted that. I just kept thinking about my health. And to be honest, every time I go back to school, I get an upper respiratory and sinus infection right away. I work in a wood shop. There wasn't proper ventilation. You got 30 kids cutting wood all day long. I've never been healthier. But if you hear my voice, I think my voice is like this from breathing dust for like 20 years. 1,000 square foot classroom, 30 kids, no real ventilation. You know, I always say it's going to be my downfall. I'm going to end up having lung cancer or something. So how did I do it? I just ran all day long.
Just worked your ass off.
I still, I work a lot. I try to be a little more hands-off. Doesn't always work. Like I'm trying to get a house on the market in a couple days. And Thanksgiving's coming. So I'm like, all right, it's a horrible time to sell, but the fact is that there's still no inventory. So people that are serious, they still look. So last night I picked up tile. My wife said, I'm going to take Mason to basketball. I said, great. So I tiled from 5 o'clock till 9:45.
Wow.
Did like 70 feet of backsplash, which is a lot of backsplash.
That is a lot of backsplash.
I don't think I've ever did that much backsplash.
Yeah, that's a lot of backsplash.
This morning I was there nice and early. I painted the fireplace, the chimney, the bricks and stuff, painted the inside of the box. I had a guy working for me. He was scraping between all the tiles so he could grout. You just do what you got to do. I don't know how I did it. And I think about when I go back, like, it's going to be a lot, But I'm actually hoping to maybe ask Newberg if I could get into an art classroom. I've never felt healthier since I've been out of the wood shop. And I think it's the air quality, to be honest. So I'm thinking like, all right, how can I work
You
this
really think
out?
you're going to go back?
Sure.
I think you enjoy this too much.
I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
And you're always going. Every day I talk to you, it's like go, 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 go.
100%.
7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night.
I wake up at 5 pretty much every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
My kids get up. I now make them breakfast every morning. Fresh pancakes usually.
Yeah, how do you put the time you get to spend with them now? And it's like, I don't know.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's awesome. And honestly, like in 10 years, they're going to appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
Cause
I think I'm going to appreciate it because they're already grown so much. That
you can appreciate it now, but when they get to be in their 20s and when they're, having kids and everything else like that, they're going to realize just how lucky they were that they got to have that. Cause isn't that ultimately why you do what you're doing? Right. So,
anyone that thinks that you're just going to get into this and then be 100% hands off, either I'm really stupid or, they're missing something. The whole goal for me is the freedom.
Right.
And I still work a lot.
Clearly.
But if I want.
You don't have to.
I don't have to. I have to go to the dentist today for my son. Guess what? When I leave here, I'm going to take him out of school, grab him, take him to the dentist. Wife's like, are you sure you're around? I'm like, I make my own schedule.
Right.
Of course I'm around.
But you're also willing to go and do tile at 9 o'clock at night.
That's it.
So you're willing to, it's not necessarily that you work less, and a lot of the time you end up working way more, but you get to choose when and when you don't work. So there was one thing too that I wanted to ask you about, because you talked about like the RIA networking. I know you do a lot of like meeting with other investors.
100%.
You're super generous with like giving out information, trying to help everybody out.
I try, yeah.
How much of like your success or how much of your deals now, like, do you attribute to that? Because I know it's got to be tremendous amounts.
Yeah. So I help a lot of people.
I know you do.
And I don't mind helping.
And you're looked up to by so many investors throughout the area who appreciate everything that you do. That's why I bring this up.
Yeah. I don't mind it. I love it. I enjoy helping people. And a lot of people call me and say, hey, Eric, I don't know if this is a deal. I don't know what to do with it. And I tell everyone, look, if we're going to wholesale it, I'll sell it for you. We split it. If you want me to buy it, I'll buy it. I'm going to pat your pocket.
Right.
You know, but a lot of people do reach out to me. I do get a lot of deals from it. And it's been great. You know, my biggest thing is always trying to remember. I always use the word keeping myself honest. So my lawyer, Giselle Rosado, hey.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Giselle. I always tell her, make sure, like if someone's lending me money or whatever, if I want to make sure the other person, whoever it is also being taken care of. Mm-hmm. Make sure you protect them. I don't want to ever have any thoughts or that are not pure, you know? Right. So my goal is to always to remind myself, like, this only works because of how I treat people, how people, you know, right. They come to me because they know I have a good reputation. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and so, you have an excellent reputation. Everybody always has nothing but great things to say about you. I mean, even just the other day when you called me and told me like, oh yeah, remember that house that we closed on and we had money in escrow, and you called and told them to just give it to them because they never asked for it. They never came back. And that was a year later. And you still were just like, just give them the money. It's the right thing to do.
Well, yeah, Giselle called me and she said, or Betsy, hi, Betsy. She called me and said, hey, you got like $500 for an electrical issue. I said, from road sale? She said, yeah. I said, dude, send it to him.
Yeah.
She's like, you sure it's not required? I said, well, they had an issue and it was like the day before closing.
Right.
How does that happen? I was literally there myself cleaning.
It's always,
you couldn't get a cleaning
like
lady.
The house, things always come up.
Yeah. So I said, yeah, send it to him. It's the right thing to do.
And that's the type of person that you are. You're always doing the right thing.
We try. And I try to keep myself honest. And we all have temptations and it's hard sometimes, but you know, if someone brings me a deal, I follow up. I'm like brutal.
You're
with
relentless.
Follow-ups. Yeah. So I don't have a system like some people have, like it in their phone or this or that. I just go, oh my God, whatever happened with this? Then when they accept my offer, because usually I get them. I get a lot of the houses that we end up talking to people.
Well, I think people trust you.
Yeah. So
right?
then I always go back and I say, who gave me that lead? Then I have to remember who gave it to me so I can make sure I take care of them.
Take care of them.
Yeah. You know, and nothing's worse than when I find out someone beats me out on a place that I worked for a long time. Yeah.
Oh, it's competitive. There's a lot of people out there and they're all trying to get the same thing, especially in a market like this, when it's a seller's market. Like those off-market deals are even harder to find because like you said, the inventory is tough.
Yeah.
What made you decide to start the meetup?
Oh, I don't want this to sound negative, so I'm going to try my best to say it without saying anything
it's more like the way you do yours is different, but I don't think there's better or worse.
So I was going to a Long Island multifamily meetup once a month. I was going to an Orange County meetup held by, I forget the guy's name, DC. I was going at the time, there was pop-up meetups by a guy named John in Newburgh, who was from Westchester, and he followed a group of guys that were buying in Newburgh. When he was buying in Brooklyn, they stopped buying in Brooklyn. They started buying in Newburgh. So he followed them because everywhere they bought went to gold. So John would have these pop-up meetings on, say, out of nowhere on a Tuesday. And he'd have 30 people show up. And he'd basically be on the contract for like 4 houses on the same block. He would literally go door to door knocking.
Wow.
Short little Italian guy in some of the roughest parts in the city of Newburgh. And he would get all these under contract. Then he would have these pop-up meetings, meetups and say, hey, look, I got all these under contract. I'm only keeping 1 or 2. I'm going to cherry pick them. Who wants this one and who wants this one? We're going to flip the block all at the exact same time and make this block valuable.
Wow.
And he kept doing that. And what a great concept, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you turn a block and the value goes from, say, 30 to 50 to now 85 to 100 per unit.
Right.
And I'm going to all these different things. Then I was going to the RIA. And everything had something I didn't like. You know, one person's trying to sell a course or something. One person, I don't know, maybe I just felt like my time was being wasted. Maybe I'm being charged. So I went and I saw the same presenter for like the 4th time. And I didn't get to network at all.
Yep.
And I paid $20 and I worked all day, worked all night, didn't see my kids that day. And
you feel like you didn't really get anything out of it.
I got nothing out of it.
Yep.
So I went to bed frustrated and I woke up with a different mindset. Instead of going to bed angry about it, I said, great. Next week I'm going to hold my own meetup. And then it was pretty much just like that.
Yeah.
Dutchess County tax auction was coming up. I bought probably 5 tax auction properties. They just changed the underwriting by Chicago Underwriting. So now you had 18 months to get a clear title, where I was buying them and I was refining them out within 6 months. Now I had to wait 18 months to sell or to refi. Yeah. So I called up title guy. We did a bunch of my titles at the time, and I said, hey, I'd love for you to speak to this group. He goes, how many people? I said, I have no clue. He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I just came up with this idea this morning. And he said, all right, yeah. I said, we have the county tax auction coming up. So now I had to find a location because now I have a title guy to speak. And KLD, Kevin Lund, whatever, design or whatever. I basically walked in. After calling a couple places, I walked in and introduced myself and said, hey, I'd love to hold a meetup here. It's about real estate. He's an investor, second generation, Pop's an investor. They said, yeah, you could hold it here. And so we were doing it at the Ice House in Poughkeepsie. Yep. I called a couple of investors, like people I try to wholesale to. And I think I had 13 people show up that first month. Next month, I had 30. And pretty much consistently, we've had 30 to 50 people every month for the last 4 to 5 years. During COVID, I tried doing it online. I hate computers. Kids jumping on my face. My dogs
can't network.
Barking.
You can't network virtually. Yeah. I can't stand it.
I think I did it twice. And I said, all right, guys, I'm done. And Norman's like, you mind if I keep doing it? You do whatever you want. I want nothing to do with this. So I put it out to the group and I said, hey, I know COVID's killing people and the whole bit. Anybody want to get together live? I have a location. If you want to wear a mask, you can, but you don't have to. And people are like, yeah. And I think the first month back, we had 13 or 15 people. I think we stopped for 3 months total. Then the next month, we went back to 30 again. Yeah. And, it was consistent the whole time. The only time I don't really show up is the summer. I got 2 small kids. We go camping a lot. We're away a lot. Mike's been holding the meetings for me during the summer, which is great. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, the reason I love going to yours is exactly those reasons, right? Like the most valuable part is like the chance conversations and connections that you meet, right? You never know who you're going to talk to. Yep. It's good to see familiar faces, but then also get to talk to different people. I don't need to hear from a speaker for an hour and a half about selling a book or anything else like that. Like I just want to meet people, develop relationships, go grab lunch or a cup of coffee. That's it. And sit down for an hour and hear about what they're doing. That's so much more valuable than sitting there and listening and being preached to for, an hour.
And the sad thing is, and I mean no disrespect to anyone that is doing it this way, when they sell a course or something to someone that really just needs to grind.
Well, it's a lot of the time people are searching for an excuse. Yeah. Right? Like why, there's got to be this missing piece of the puzzle, which is why I can't find a deal. When in reality, like you said, like if you just start with finding deals, like I know so many investors who don't know almost anything about financing and technical terminology and, like construction or anything. All they're good at is finding deals and they're super successful. Yeah. Because if you have deals, you just got to call the right people and they'll take care of the rest. The hardest thing is in my business, it's finding leads, right? Yeah. Brokers are constantly looking for leads to new clients. That's why people pay stupid money for leads. So if you can source the leads, you can always find the people to work with.
A lot of people try to start LLCs or whatever and everything. I say, look, cart before the horse. You just find a deal.
Right. They want to talk about trusts and LLCs and borrowing against your 401k and Roth IRA. That's all like tier 2, 3, and 4. Like once you're seasoned and experienced.
Do you have any money? No. Well, then you don't need an LLC because you don't need to protect your assets if you have no assets.
You have no assets.
Yeah.
Right.
And I didn't have Bob. Thanks, Bob. Bob used to always tell me, you got to get an LLC. And I'm like, I don't need an LLC. Yeah. I said, if someone sues me, I have nothing. Yeah. What can they take?
I have people who will buy a $300,000 multifamily. They'll put 3% down. They have $9,000 in equity. And I tell them, you don't need to quick claim your deed into an LLC. Number one, you've got to then file, you've got to keep all of your documentation legal, and right?
You got to pay taxes on it too.
You got to pay taxes on it.
Transfer.
You're going to pay an attorney to do this for you. Yeah. And then on top of all that, nobody's going to sue you because you got $9,000 in equity. It's not worth anybody's time.
Pulls up your name. They have no assets. All right. If you want to sue them, it's going to cost you $20,000.
And here's what you're suing for.
And that lawsuit disappears right away.
Right. Yeah. And
Find the deals.
All the time. And it's just like, don't get so caught up in the weeds. But you're right. Like, people go to those things and they look to learn. I call it like analysis paralysis, where you're just
100%.
constantly overanalyzing, overthinking, looking for things to learn and never taking any action. And then you hear someone like yourself and you're just like, I just kind of wing it. Like, just go fly by the seat of my pants and just go buy something and figure it out from there.
Yeah. So before, I know it's almost time to wrap it up, but yeah, we do that a lot. So we end up buying these places. We end up helping people buy places. And I'm sorry, I just started winging it because I totally forgot what I was going to say. I had something in my head. Oh well.
But you're right. Like, right at the end of the day, it's like you're just out there trying to find a good deal. And if you find a good deal, you can call someone like yourself and they'll take care of the rest.
There's always guys that are going to buy it if it's a good deal.
Yeah, but a lot of the time, people, what they think is a good deal isn't a good deal.
So I'll tell somebody that's brand new, what should you do first? Find an area, any area. I don't care what area it is. Walk every house that's got an accepted offer.
Yeah.
Follow that house, see how much it sold for. Know that block by block. Because within a 15-minute time period, anything in Poughkeepsie or Wappingers, you could call me and I'm going to tell you what it's worth.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do to the person that's trying to sell it, how's the roof?
Yep.
How's the kitchen? How's the bathroom?
Yeah.
How old? How's the foundation? What type of heating system? How old? And I could have a number without even ever walking it.
How many conversations do we have where it's just like, hey, I'm looking at this house. It's over around this block.
That's it.
This is the numbers. And I'm like, yeah, it's worth X. And you're like, that's what I was thinking. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's just as simple as that because it's repeatable.
I go into contract quite often with an inspection period, obviously, but without even seeing the house based on, and I said to the owner, look, I'm going to make an offer based on everything you told me. 10-year-old roof, windows are 6 years old, kitchen needs to be redone, bathroom needs to be redone, there's, a hole in this or whatever. I said, if you're truthful, this number should be blah, 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 no problem. And I never go back. I never renegotiate. I never, beat up anyone. My offer is my offer. And I don't do the back and forth, Right. Someone came in and offered me more. Great. I wish you the best of luck. If you need anything, I'm still here. And a lot of times I end up buying it.
Anyway. Well, because the other person doesn't perform.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of people out there who say they can do X, Y, and Z. They say they'll pay $25,000 more. They go look at the house and they realize, oh, actually, Eric's number was right.
Well, we bought one on Delafield. Great person, wonderful house. She had it high. I thought at the time it was a little high. She went into contract with a couple different people. And a couple different people beat her up.
Kept coming back on.
Yeah. And beating her up on the price. She got to the point where I made an offer. She's like, listen. I said, no, there is no back and forth.
Right.
My offer is my offer.
This is it.
And, I know my numbers very well. I said, they're beating you up because, this is wrong, this is wrong, and this is wrong. She goes, well, how'd you know that? I said, I just walked it. She said, oh, you had to have inspectors and this. I was like, well, this is what I do all day, every day.
Right.
I buy houses. It's, it's not hard. I said, this is definitely illegal. That needs to be addressed,
Yep.
We closed it. The lady still calls me all the time. She's a sweetheart of a lady.
Yeah.
She's using my plumbers now. If she has any issues, she calls me.
Yep. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So for anybody who wants to connect with you, I know you said you're not, too on social media and all that stuff, but what's the best way if someone wants to connect with you, reach out to you, they have a deal or something, how can they reach you?
I guess email.
Okay. What's your email?
Eric Helbock at gmail.com.
Cool. So send you an email.
HELBOCK at gmail.com. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. It was awesome to do this.
Yeah, thanks, man.